Hey, good morning everyone, and welcome to the PivotBoss Pre-Market Report for Tuesday, April 3rd, 2018. I'm Frank Ochoa, aka PivotBoss. Here is a look at the daily time frame of the ES. Right now, we're seeing a very tiny range day here so far in overnight trading after yesterday's high range sell-off. We talked about before in yesterday's pre-market report that we had the suspicion that everything was still pointing downward and that we would likely see a move back toward 25-29 here pretty soon. The idea was that any pullback, even as high as the 69.70 zone, could still be a selling opportunity. And the stops came out pretty hard yesterday. Big time continuation downward, getting as low as 25.52. A big time high range day, over 125% of ADR. Today, a very narrow range day. It's very, very typical of what you would normally see. After you see a high range day, you typically follow that with a narrow range day, at least for much of the session. And that can play out throughout a day, or things can pick up if key support levels are taken out. So right now for the early portion of the day, it could be a fade the edges type of trading environment. You can see only 12.25 points right now traded. It's been averaging 56 on a 10-day, 57 on a 5-day. So far less than 22% of current 10-day average. Very quiet session so far. But here's one thing. If this is the low, I'm not convinced that's the low, but if some of you are trying to fade, the idea would be that if this remains the low, you could see a push toward those targets right here. So between 26.50 and 26.70 basically. That's about the zone that would be about right if you were looking to fade this thing. If price were to reject the previous month's low here and we start to bounce, you're looking for that zone right about there. But right now, it appears that any bounce into about 2600 could be seen as a selling opportunity today for a continuation toward 25, 29, and perhaps as low as 2500 over the course of the next few days. We'll see how this continues to develop. Now again, I will reiterate one last point. If price does come down here below the key range low, that's going to be an opportunity to look for a trap, a bear trap that allows you to return price back toward 27.03. That's the primary idea. Alright, let's take a look at the NQ here. The NQ, very similar analysis overall. Yesterday we were expecting further weakness for the week into 6300, 6260, that zone. And we got a big time move. We got price that sold off heavily. Price is held off that 66.53, the midpoint of the key range. And from there we've continued to see overall weakness today so far in overnight trading. A low range day, 25% of ADR, only 48.25 points. You can see what it's been averaging on a 10 and 5-day basis. So it's been very, very high range activity overall. But today, after high range, you're going to follow with some quiet behavior, digestion, some back and forth. So look to fade the edges with a downward bias, looking for a continuation toward the lower edge of the range over the next couple of days. Alright, taking a look here at crude oil. Now crude oil, very, very actionable right now, and it was yesterday as well. We talked about this key range playing out right here, this midpoint. I mentioned the rejection here, and yesterday I mentioned very similar to this one here. We pop, we get a failure here, we could start driving. This thing got a failed new high yesterday. As soon as we got into the trading room, that failed new high started to really kick into gear, and then from there stops came out and this thing turned into a huge day. You can see right here the blue bar suggests or signals that it's over 125% of average range, which means it's a high range extension day. That again, after a big break here, this zone right there becomes very, very important. Basically the midpoint of yesterday's range, right here the prior pivot low, which is also the key level, that's the zone that bears want to keep offered. So basically fade new highs. If 63.75 is seen over the next day or two, that could be an opportunity to sell it for a continuation lower. So right now all bounce is likely to be defended. If we don't get to the overnight highs, which, you know, after taking VWAP offered here intraday, we could be looking at somewhere around VWAP, VPOC, somewhere in the 63.20s which is not far away from where we currently are for a shot at seeing new lows ahead. So right now this thing continues to look bearish. The idea was if we can't hold 63.75, then 62.18 is next up, followed by the 60.12 level right there. So basically that's what we'll be looking for, is a continuation until proven otherwise. Alright, let's take a look now at gold futures. Gold right now, I'm kind of holding off on gold at the moment. There's some great directional moves here that's playing out inside the range. So every time we get to an edge, it's a great reversal to the opposite edge. It's been very, very nice. Overall, we've continued to chop around the middle, big high range days down and up, back and forth. I like the edges. That's why this was a better opportunity up. You know, this was a better opportunity up. These edge plays are very nice. Right now we kind of been chopping mostly in this area, and so right now it's kind of just holding off at the moment. But at the same time, we are building some significant energy in this range. Look at that energy we're building up. Very disciplined action between 1305 and 1365, and at some point that's going to lead to significant expansion. And I think we're closer to that point than we were before, and I think now you know, it could be imminent. I mean, we could be a few weeks away from seeing, or a couple of weeks away from seeing some significant expansion out of this range, and that could be a big deal in terms of directional movement for several weeks, if not a couple of months. So that's going to be something to watch out for. We've gone sideways for the first quarter of the year. We'll see if we continue to do that, or do we start to see expansion and a continuation. Could be to the upside, could be down. Either way, we're going to have great targets to play off of. For right now, though, the flow is currently chopped around the mid here, chopping around the midpoint of this range with an upward bias, but it's just overall I'd be looking for an edge play, so I'd be cautious and just more patient in gold. Lastly, a look at Bitcoin here. Bitcoin continues to flow lower, very, very bearish. Cannot reestablish above 9K. The idea is we probably have to flush much lower before we really start to see some sort of rejection and an attempt higher. So that means taking out somewhere in this tail to new lows. We have to flush lower, and once we do, then, you know, below 6K, anything below 6K, then we might be able to see a bounce back toward 9K and then up toward 12K. So I mentioned in our group yesterday for the monthly market outlook, which you can find the recording at the website. I'll take you there in a moment. That in Bitcoin here, I'd hold off until 6K is violated. Once 6K is rejected, there could be a double from 6K back toward 12K that is in play if we see what we want to see down here. So that could be the major opportunity here. But right now, we're just not there. You got to let it continue to play out. So let me take you to that link right now. If you go to PivotBoss.com, click on News. It'll scroll you right down. You're going to see this recording link. It's going to scroll down to this position here because the post you're watching right now will be in the first position. Click on Recording here, and it'll pop up the recording link. This is to the PivotBoss Market Outlook that we did yesterday afternoon. I do this every month, the first trading day, after the first trading day of the month. And then we also did a stock picking session here where we're looking for candidates. So lots of great analysis, longer term analysis and candidates that can be found here. It's about an hour or so in terms of recording length, but give it a shot. If you're not familiar with our trading room, $19 for a 2-week trial, only $99 a month thereafter. That's going to be a good spot to get some of this analysis live and in real time. So we'll be in the room here starting up in a little while. Look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.